The Los Angeles International Airport was always a blur of arrivals, announcements, and moving bodies. Travelers rushed by in suits and sandals, dragging luggage and chasing flights. In the middle of the flow, a man in a gray suit moved with calm purpose. His name was Vincent Grant. He stood out not because he wanted attention, but because he moved like someone who never needed to look back. Near the baggage claim, a young courier wearing a black backpack and holding a silver briefcase looked around, checking for someone. Vincent brushed past him lightly. The bump was almost nothing. A muttered, "Sorry," and then he kept walking. By the time the courier turned, confused and scanning the crowd, Vincent was already out the exit with the briefcase in his hand, and no one calling after him. Across town, in the garage lot beneath the flickering lights of the city, Max Madison prepped his cab for the night. His hands moved with quiet precision, polishing the dash, aligning the fare meter, straightening his seatbelt strap. A worn postcard sat tucked near the speedometer. It showed a bright tropical island, blue water, white sand, a tiny bungalow on stilts. Max stared at the image for a second too long, then nodded to himself like it was a promise. He opened the door and slid into the driver's seat. The city was calling. Out on the road, the city glowed under the late afternoon sun. Max moved through Los Angeles like someone threading a needle. He slipped through neighborhoods, past warehouses, taco stands, glass towers, and palm trees swaying in the wind. Every red light was a pause to breathe. Every green light a rhythm. The city could be chaos, but in the cab, with the wheel in his hands and the postcard in view, Max found control. His radio played something soft and slow. He didn't talk to dispatch unless he had to. This was his space. His rules. Near downtown, a woman in a neat navy suit stepped into the cab. Her name was Annie Taylor, a federal prosecutor with a steel spine and tired eyes. "Wilshire and 6th," she said, sitting back. "Sure," Max replied, glancing at her in the mirror. The silence lasted 2 blocks before she broke it. "You always this quiet?" "Only when the passenger's thinking hard," Max said. "Didn't want to interrupt the gears turning." Annie smiled faintly. "Lot of gears today." They started talking, about stress, long hours, what kept them moving forward. She asked him what he'd rather be doing. He told her about his dream of owning a high-end limo service. He even mentioned the island on the postcard. She laughed. "You've got it all planned out. Just waiting on everything else to catch up," Max said. By the time they reached her building, she seemed lighter. As she stepped out, she handed him a business card. "In case you ever need a lawyer. Or someone to believe in that island." Max looked at the card, then up at her. She was already walking away. Back at the taxi stand, Max pulled in and cut the engine. His dispatcher, Lenny, was waiting with a clipboard and a bad attitude. "You took too long on that last run," Lenny said, scribbling something down. "It was downtown traffic," Max replied. "You know the routes. You know what makes time. You're a smart guy. But smart don't pay if you're slow." Max bit his tongue. He didn't argue. Lenny always pushed, and Max always kept it inside. "Next fare's coming up. Make it count," Lenny added, already walking away. Max stared at the card Annie had given him. He tucked it into his visor and waited for the next signal. The sun had set. Downtown lights flickered across metal and glass as the city cooled into night. Max waited at the curb when a man in a gray suit approached. Tall, neatly groomed, carrying a silver briefcase. "Hey," the man said. "You free?" Max nodded. "Where to?" "Few stops. All close. I'm in real estate. Clients, closings, signatures. You drive me around, wait at each spot. 600 for the night. Cash." Max hesitated. 600? 6. You're my guy. Just you, me, and the meter turned off. Max looked him over. The man was calm. Polite. Confident in a way that felt rehearsed, but not fake. Max shrugged. "All right. Long as it's legal." The man smiled, slid into the back seat, and shut the door. I'm Vincent, he said. Max? They pulled into traffic. The deal was made. As the cab rolled along, Vincent leaned forward, eyes on the dashboard. Tell me about the postcard, he said, pointing to it. That where you're going someday? Max nodded. Yeah. That's the plan. Limo company. Island life. Something better than this. Vincent studied Max like he was reading a file. Sounds good. Most people don't even have a plan. They just coast. Coasting's safer, Max replied. Vincent chuckled. So's being dead. But here you are. They didn't speak for a minute. Max followed the GPS toward Koreatown. First stop coming up. Vincent opened the briefcase on his lap, checked a few papers, then closed it again. Just 5 stops, he said. Easy night. Max parked along a quiet street in a Koreatown neighborhood. Older buildings, rusted gates, flickering porch lights. Vincent looked out the window, nodded once, and stepped out. Back in 10, he said. Max watched him enter the building, then settled in to wait. He adjusted the rear view, stared out at the passing cars, and let his mind drift. 10 minutes passed. Then a sudden crash rocked the roof of the cab. Max jolted. A man's body had slammed down onto the windshield, shattering the glass. Blood smeared across the hood. The body rolled off and hit the pavement. Max jumped out, heart pounding, trying to make sense of it. Vincent came calmly out of the building, brushing glass off his jacket. What the hell just happened? Max shouted. Vincent walked over. He fell. Fell? He landed on my car. He didn't fall, Vincent admitted. I shot him. Max stared at Vincent like he'd just been dropped into someone else's nightmare. You killed him? Vincent looked down at the dead man. Yeah. Max backed away. No. No, I'm not part of this. You are now, Vincent said flatly. Max turned to run. Vincent stepped in, grabbed his arm, and pushed the cold barrel of a pistol against Max's side. Look at me, he said quietly. I need you. You're my ride. That's all. We clean this up, we finish the night, you go home. $600. Simple. Max shook his head. You're crazy. Maybe. But I'm holding the gun. Vincent opened the trunk. The cab's metal groaned. Help me, he said. Or I shoot you and leave you in there with him. Max stood frozen, hands shaking, breath shallow. The body lay crumpled beside the cab, a tangle of limbs and broken glass. Vincent didn't blink. Pick up the legs, he ordered. Max obeyed. Not because he wanted to, but because the gun stayed close, and Vincent's calm was scarier than anger. They loaded the man into the trunk. Vincent slammed it shut. I'm sorry it's not your dream ride, he said as he got back in. But it's a ride. Max climbed into the driver's seat, gripping the wheel like it might save him. Drive, Vincent said. Max pulled away from the curb, heart pounding, the night already spinning out of control. Detective Ray Fanning stood under a weak street lamp, arms crossed, eyes scanning the scene. The body had been bagged, the shattered cab towed, but something wasn't adding up. He crouched beside a chalk outline, then looked up at his partner. Guy falls from a window, lands on a taxi. Driver says it just happened while he was parked. But no one inside the building saw him jump or heard a fight? His partner shrugged. Could be a suicide. Fanning shook his head. No. Windows don't break themselves like that. And suicides don't carry gunshot wounds to the chest. He stood and looked toward the darkened apartment building. This was a hit. A clean one. Any leads? Fanning stared at the cracked sidewalk where the body had landed. Only the cab. And the driver. Back on the road, Max drove in silence. The city felt different now, colder, harder. Like it was watching him. Vincent sat in the back seat, relaxed, cleaning his hands with a cloth from the glove box. You okay? Vincent asked, glancing up. You murdered a man. It was a job. Nothing personal. Max shook his head. That's supposed to make it better? Vincent leaned forward. You ever hear of Rwanda? 10,000 people died a day for months. Nobody blinked. But one guy dies here tonight, and you act like it's the end of the world. Max didn't answer. He just drove. You think this is about evil? This is about efficiency. The guy was going to testify. Now he won't. Max gripped the wheel tighter. Vincent sat back again. We all do what we have to. They pulled up outside a rundown office building near mid-city. Neon signs buzzed. Windows were dark except one on the second floor. Vincent checked his watch. 10 minutes. Then we move. As Max turned to say something, Vincent reached forward and snapped a handcuff onto Max's wrist, then locked the other end to the steering wheel. Hey! Max shouted, yanking at it. What are you doing? Insurance, Vincent said. Stay put. He grabbed the briefcase and stepped out. Max watched him disappear into the building, then struggled with the cuffs, cursing under his breath. Two guys nearby, young, wiry, and twitchy, noticed him. They strolled over. Hey man, one of them said, leaning into the open window. You good? Max didn't answer. The second guy circled the cab, eyeing the briefcase on the seat. What's this? Looks expensive. Back off, Max said. They didn't. The first guy reached for the back door. The other tried the passenger side. Max kicked at the dash, yanked at the cuff, started honking the horn. The robbers ignored it. What's in the case? One of them asked. He opened the door. Vincent returned from the building just as one of the robbers yanked the briefcase from the back seat. Hey! Vincent called out. The two men turned. Vincent raised his pistol and fired twice. One shot in the chest. The other in the head. The second man ran. Vincent didn't chase. He took careful aim and dropped him mid-stride. Silence followed. Just the soft hiss of traffic down the street. Max stared, frozen. Vincent picked up the briefcase, walked around, and unlocked the cuff from the wheel. You okay? He asked calmly. Max didn't answer. Vincent got in. 3 more stops. Detective Fanning stood beside a row of bodies, the fluorescent lights above giving everything a sterile chill. The medical examiner pulled back the sheet on the second victim. Same kind of wound, she said. Precise. Close range. Entry clean, no hesitation. Fanning examined the body. No robbery. Nothing stolen. Same with the first one. He moved to the next gurney, one of the 2 robbers. Gunshot wound to the temple. Fast. Efficient. You don't shoot like this unless you've done it before, Fanning muttered. The ME looked at him. You think all these are connected? I don't think, he said, straightening up. I know. He pulled out his notepad and started sketching a line between the 3 deaths. This isn't random. It's a list. And somebody's crossing off names. Vincent sat in the back of the cab, flipping through the briefcase again, calm as ever. Max drove, his eyes tired, hands clenched. Finally, he spoke. You don't even care, do you? About who they are. What they did. You just kill them and move on. Vincent closed the case and leaned forward. You ever hear about the man who died on the subway and no one noticed for 6 hours? What? Happened in New York. Guy had a heart attack on the A train. People sat right next to him, read their papers, listened to music, didn't even realize he was dead. Max frowned. Vincent continued. People are disconnected. Oblivious. You live in a city full of strangers, and nobody gives a damn. That doesn't justify murder, Max said. Vincent leaned back. I don't justify anything. I just work. They arrived at a quiet jazz club tucked between old storefronts in South Central. A red neon sign buzzed above the door, Levi's. Vincent stepped out and looked at Max. Come in. You might like this one. Inside, the club was dim and low-key. Soft trumpet notes floated through the air. A few old-timers sat at tables, nursing drinks. A trio played on stage, upright bass, keys, and a man with a silver trumpet, smooth and sure. Vincent led Max to a small table. His name's Daniel, Vincent said. Used to tour with the greats. Now he plays here. Every Thursday. Max looked at Vincent, surprised. You know this guy? Vincent nodded. For now. They listened for a while. The music had soul. Daniel's playing told stories of sorrow, love, and long nights in smoky rooms. After the set, Daniel came over to the table, trumpet still in hand, wiping sweat from his brow. Vincent stood and shook his hand. That was beautiful. Daniel smiled. You a fan or a tourist? A little of both. Daniel looked at Max. You his driver? Yeah, Max said. Just along for the ride. Vincent sat down. You ever play with Miles? Daniel laughed. Once. Didn't last long. He liked control. I liked freedom. Vincent leaned forward. Ever miss the road? Daniel sighed. Every day. But this is home now. Club's mine. Music's mine. There was something honest in the way Daniel spoke. Max hoped, just for a second, that maybe Vincent wouldn't kill this one. Daniel turned to walk back toward the bar. Vincent stood, pulled his pistol, and shot him twice in the back. He fell without a sound, the trumpet slipping from his hand and hitting the floor with a sharp clang. Max stood frozen. The other guests ducked under tables, screaming. The band scattered. Vincent turned to Max. Let's go. Max followed in a daze, blood pounding in his ears. Outside, the city hadn't changed. Same traffic. Same streetlights. But Max had changed. Inside the cab, he didn't start the engine right away. You didn't have to do that, he said softly. Vincent looked at him. He was on the list. In a glass-walled conference room downtown, Detective Fanning stood in front of a whiteboard covered in photos, maps, and names. The other officers looked unconvinced as he pointed to a pattern. 3 dead. All connected to an upcoming federal case. 2 were witnesses. The third? A former associate. He circled them with a red marker. They're being picked off, one by one. This is a hit. And it's being done by a pro. The captain folded her arms. And you're linked to the cab? Fanning pointed at the photo of the wrecked taxi from Koreatown. Same cab was at the first scene. Witnesses saw it leave the second location. It's the one constant. Then find the driver, the captain said. Fast. Fanning nodded. He's either dead, or in the middle of this. Back in the cab, Vincent gave Max a new destination. We're making a stop. Max didn't ask questions. He just drove. They arrived at a small hospital in Inglewood. Inside, in a clean, sunlit room, an older woman beamed as Max walked in. Baby, she said. Why didn't you tell me you were coming? Her name was Ida Madison. Max's mother. Vincent followed quietly, a bouquet of fresh flowers in his hand. Max tried to explain why he was there, stammering. Vincent works with me, he said quickly. You know, business stuff. Ida smiled at Vincent. He your partner? In a way, Vincent said smoothly. She turned to Max. So when are you launching the limo company? Still talking about that island dream? Max froze. Vincent looked at him. He's getting close. Vincent handed Ida the flowers. On Max's behalf, he said. He wanted you to have them. Ida lit up. Oh. Thank you, sweetheart. Max looked down, embarrassed. He hadn't brought her anything. He hadn't even meant to stop by. This wasn't his idea. It was Vincent's. As they left the hospital, Max's frustration boiled over. What the hell was that? He snapped. Why did you bring me here? Vincent didn't even look at him. Because you lie better than you think you do. Max shook his head, voice rising. You're sick. No. You are, Vincent said flatly. All that talk about dreams? It's just air. You visit your mother, pretend you're building something. But you're driving a cab. Every night. Stuck. Max clenched his fists. You're not trapped by me, Vincent said. You were trapped before I got in your car. Outside the hospital, Max snapped. As Vincent stood by the rear of the cab, Max suddenly lunged, grabbed the silver briefcase, and took off running across the sidewalk. Max! Vincent shouted, chasing after him. Max sprinted into the street. Horns blared. Headlights lit him up as he dodged between moving cars. Then, with a wild yell, he hurled the briefcase into oncoming traffic. A delivery van struck it. Metal exploded into shards, papers flying into the wind, all of Vincent's targets and plans destroyed in seconds. Vincent stood on the sidewalk, staring, his jaw tight. You just signed your death warrant, he said. Max turned to face him. Good. Vincent walked back toward him, calm but colder than ever. You think that fixed things? He asked. Now you have a bigger problem. Max stood his ground. Vincent stepped in close. Now you're going to fix this. You're going to walk into the next stop, meet a man named Felix, and get the updated list. Just like I would. Why would he believe me? Because if he doesn't, Vincent said, he'll kill you. And if you don't go, I'll kill you. Max swallowed hard. You got a choice, Vincent added. You die tonight. Or you play my role. The cab sat idling behind them, the city roaring around them. Max looked at the wreckage in the street. Then he nodded once. The cab moved west now, deeper into the heart of Los Angeles nightlife. The streets were crowded with people heading out, bright dresses, loud music, neon bleeding across faces. But inside the car, it was dead quiet. Max stared ahead, jaw tight. Vincent sat in the back, reloading a fresh clip into his pistol. You're going to walk in like me, Vincent said calmly. Not too friendly. Not too quiet. Just business. Make eye contact, speak clearly, don't flinch. Max didn't answer. Vincent leaned forward. You mess this up, they kill you. If they don't, I will. Understand? Max nodded once, tight and mechanical. The nightclub sign came into view, El Rodeo. Loud. Expensive. Dangerous. Good, Vincent said. Now go be me. Outside El Rodeo, two men in tailored shirts and earpieces waved Max down before he even reached the door. They patted him down hard, rough hands, fast movements, zero patience. Name? One of them asked. Vincent, Max said, his voice dry in his throat. They exchanged a glance and nodded. One pulled out a phone, made a quick call in Spanish, then gestured. This way. Max followed, surrounded by two more men now. They led him through back hallways, past booming bass, strobe lights, and velvet curtains. Every person he passed looked like they were watching for a reason to shoot. Max kept walking. Just like Vincent said. Not too fast. Not too slow. They led Max into a private room lit by red glass chandeliers. Felix Reyes Torina sat at a long table, his shirt unbuttoned at the collar, gold chains resting against his chest. Vincent, Felix said, sipping from a glass of rum. I thought you'd be taller. Max swallowed. Traffic. Felix smiled without warmth. Where's the list? Max stayed still. Destroyed. I need a new one. Felix raised an eyebrow. You lost it? Max leaned forward slightly. Didn't lose it. Cop problems. Cab got hit. Now we're behind schedule, and if I don't finish the job, they all live. That's your problem. Felix studied him. Then he laughed. You've got some balls. Max didn't flinch. Felix gestured to one of his men. Give him the names. The man handed Max a new file. Felix's voice dropped lower. If this job doesn't get done, I won't need to kill you. They will. Back outside, Max walked fast, his hand gripping the folder like it might dissolve if he let go. The bodyguards didn't speak. Just escorted him back to the cab. Vincent sat waiting, one arm resting on the window. He looked Max over, surprised. You're still alive? Max opened the door and dropped into the driver's seat. I got the list, he said. Vincent took it, flipped through the names, nodding. That's impressive. Max didn't answer. He just started the engine. You're better at this than you think, Vincent said. Max stared at the road ahead. I don't want to be. Vincent smiled faintly. Too late. They drove into the dark, the next name hanging heavy between them. At a federal surveillance center downtown, Agent Pedrosa stood with Detective Fanning, watching grainy club security footage. That's him, Pedrosa said, pointing. From Felix's place. This man right here. The footage showed Max, walking through El Rodeo's back hall, tense, eyes forward. Fanning leaned in. That's the cab driver. He's using the hitman's name, Pedrosa said. Felix gave him the updated targets. Now he's walking around like he belongs. Fanning's jaw tightened. He's in deep. Pedrosa nodded. We've already got protection moving to the next target, Peter Lim, nightclub owner. Heavy security. Fanning glanced at the timestamp. Not heavy enough. He grabbed his jacket and headed for the door. He's going to finish the list tonight. Or die trying. Max drove without a word. The lights of the city rolled by in flashes, billboards, palm trees, traffic lights. But it felt like they were the only two people left in LA. Vincent leaned back, flipping through the folder of names. He looked over at Max. I meant what I said. You handled Felix better than I thought you would. Max's knuckles were white on the wheel. I didn't do it for you. Vincent smiled. Doesn't matter why. You did it. Most people fold under pressure. But you're still here. Max didn't respond. After a pause, Vincent spoke again, quieter now. Maybe this night's teaching you something. Max shook his head. It's teaching me what I'll never become. As they drove through Koreatown, the street emptied for a moment. No people. No cars. Two coyotes stepped out from the shadows. Silent. Thin. Their eyes glowing in the cab's headlights. Max slowed to a stop. Vincent sat forward. They watched the animals cross slowly, one looking directly at them before slipping back into the dark. Neither man spoke. The silence felt sacred. Then Max hit the gas again. They didn't look back. The next stop was Fever, a massive nightclub, louder and wilder than anything so far. Outside, traffic backed up, crowds swarmed the entrance, and flashing lights from security made it hard to see. Vincent checked his gun, calm and quiet. Peter Lim's in there. VIP lounge, back of the top floor. Max looked around. You can't just walk in there. Cops might already be watching. Vincent smirked. Then they'd better move fast. Inside the club, Felix's men were already present, blending into the crowd. And from another street, Fanning and Pedrosa pulled up with tactical units. FBI jackets. LAPD cruisers. Everyone converged on the same location. And no one knew who would get there first. Inside Fever, music pounded like a second heartbeat. The dance floor pulsed with lights and motion. Vincent slipped through the crowd like a ghost. Max stayed at the entrance, eyes darting, trying to spot him. On the upper level, Peter Lim sat with a drink in hand, flanked by two guards. Vincent moved closer, through shadows, behind columns, past security. At the far end, Fanning pushed through the crowd. He caught sight of Max near the DJ booth and started toward him, shouting over the music. Hey! Stop! LAPD! Max turned, saw him, and froze. But before Fanning could reach him, gunfire. As the shots echoed through Fever, the crowd scattered in a panic. Screams rose, bodies rushed the exits, and security shoved people toward the doors. Fanning pushed through the chaos, grabbed Max by the arm, and pulled him into a side hallway. Where is he? Fanning barked. Max was shaking, out of breath. Upstairs. He's going after Peter Lim. You know who he is. You've seen him kill. Max nodded. He said there's one more after this. Fanning pulled out his radio. Shots fired inside Club Fever. Suspect still active. Suspect is armed in. Suddenly, Vincent appeared behind them. One shot. Fanning dropped to the floor, blood spreading across his shirt. Max screamed, but the sound was swallowed by the chaos. Vincent stepped forward, gun raised. Let's go. Outside, in a back alley behind the club, Vincent shoved Max forward. The night air was thick with sirens and distant shouting. Max stumbled, his mind spinning from the horror of what just happened. You didn't have to kill him, Max said, voice hoarse. Vincent gave him a sharp look. He was going to blow everything. You want to die tonight, Max? Or do you want to finish what you started? I didn't start anything. Yes, you did, Vincent snapped. The second you didn't walk away back in Koreatown, you became part of this. Max stopped walking. No. You dragged me into it. Vincent didn't argue. He just lifted the gun again. Max moved. The cab was still running nearby. They got in and drove off into the dark. In the cab, Max's hands trembled on the wheel. Vincent was silent at first, eyes scanning for tails, listening for sirens. Finally, Max spoke. All those people you killed. All those lives. Vincent didn't respond. Max's voice rose. You act like it doesn't matter. Like none of it means anything. It doesn't, Vincent said calmly. People die every day. In every city. Random or planned. They're just numbers on paper. Max shook his head. That's bullshit. Vincent leaned forward. You know what's bullshit? Thinking this city runs on meaning. It runs on money. On power. On people who survive and people who don't. You're not a survivor, Max said. You're just a coward hiding behind a gun. Vincent stared at him for a long beat. We'll see who's left standing. Max turned onto a side street, speeding up suddenly. Vincent narrowed his eyes. What are you doing? Max didn't answer. He kept accelerating. Vincent reached forward, gun raised. Max jerked the wheel hard to the left. The cab flew into oncoming traffic. Tires screeched. Horns blared. The car slammed into a parked SUV and flipped sideways, glass shattering, metal twisting. It skidded, rolled once, and came to a smoking stop in the middle of the street. Max crawled out first, blood on his face, limping. Vincent pushed open the broken door and stumbled out, dazed but still alive. Blue lights lit the street. A patrol car pulled up fast. A uniformed officer stepped out, weapon drawn. Hands up! Now! Max raised his hands slowly, coughing. The officer approached the cab, opened the trunk, and stepped back in horror. Inside was the first body from earlier in the night. Still there. Still bloody. Get on the ground! The officer shouted at Max. I didn't do this! Max yelled. He did! The guy in the suit, he's the one! But Vincent was gone. Max turned toward the sidewalk, still cuffed, as the officer moved to arrest him. And that's when Max saw the laptop. Open on the cab floor. The final name was still glowing on the screen. Annie. Max stared at the screen glowing in the dark cab. His eyes locked on the final name. Annie Taylor. His heart dropped. He shouted to the officer. That man! He's going after her! She's the last one! The officer didn't listen. Get down! Max lunged, grabbed the cop's sidearm, twisted, then slammed his elbow into the officer's throat. The man stumbled back. Max ran. Gun in hand, bleeding, limping, he ran like hell. He had to reach her. Max ducked into a 24-hour diner and rushed behind the counter. Phone! He shouted. A stunned worker pointed to the wall phone. Max yanked it off and dialed the number on Annie's business card from earlier that day. Her office line rang. Taylor, she answered. Annie! It's Max, cab driver, from this morning. Max? She said, confused. You have to listen, there's a man coming to kill you. Right now. You're on his list. He's killed 4 people tonight. A pause. Is this a joke? Annie, please! You need to leave the building. Get security. Now! She started to respond, but then the line went dead. Max stared at the phone. He was already too late. Back in her downtown office, Annie stood up, shaken. She walked quickly to the security desk down the hall. The guard on duty looked up. Something wrong, ma'am? There's a man coming to this building. He's dangerous. Armed. I need you too. The power cut out. Darkness swallowed the hall. A second later, the guard crumpled, dead from a silenced shot to the head. Annie screamed and ran, her heels clicking hard against the tile as she ducked behind the elevator bay. Vincent stepped out of the shadows like he belonged there. Calm. Unhurried. He began moving floor by floor. Hunting. Vincent moved like a shadow, clearing corners with smooth precision. Lights flickered from emergency backup power. The hum of machinery echoed through the walls. He opened doors one by one, clearing rooms methodically. No emotion. Just procedure. Annie crouched behind a desk on her floor, heart pounding. She held her breath as Vincent entered the hallway. His footsteps were slow, deliberate. She crawled toward the emergency stairwell, silent, gripping her phone, no signal. Vincent turned his head suddenly. He heard something. He followed. The stairwell door burst open. Max charged in, gun raised. Annie! He shouted. Vincent turned and fired. The bullet missed, cracking glass and hitting drywall. Max dove behind a filing cabinet, returned fire, blowing out lights above Vincent's head. Annie screamed, running toward Max's voice. Vincent fired again. Max lunged out, grabbed Annie's hand, and pulled her behind him. They fled down a side hall, kicking open a stairwell door. We've got to get out, Max panted. Vincent followed, fast and silent. They slammed the doors shut behind them and started running down the steps, two at a time. Vincent wasn't far behind. Max and Annie burst out of the office building, lungs burning, clothes torn. Sirens echoed in the distance, but no one was close enough to help. We need to disappear, Max said. Someplace crowded. They ran through alleys, across sidewalks, down into the glowing mouth of the 7th Street/Metro Center subway station. The turnstiles were unmanned. They jumped them and rushed down to the platform. Behind them, Vincent followed. No hesitation. No panic. He stepped onto the same train just as the doors closed. 3 people. 1 train. Final stop. The subway was nearly empty. Just a few scattered passengers, lost in their own nights. Max and Annie sat near the back of one car. Max gripped the gun with both hands, trying not to shake. Vincent moved through the cars slowly, like a hunter, eyes sharp, steps silent. Every door he passed through hissed shut behind him. Max stood, shielding Annie, and backed toward the rear door. They locked eyes through the window of the connecting car. Vincent raised his weapon. The train rattled forward under the city. Dim overhead lights flickered. Max ducked and fired through the glass door. Vincent returned fire, bullets punching through metal and sparks flying. Passengers screamed and dropped to the floor. Max fired again. Vincent flinched. Max pushed Annie down and moved into the next car, trying to draw Vincent away. Another shot. Vincent clipped Max in the shoulder. Max dropped to his knees. Vincent stepped forward, lining up the kill shot. But Max, already bleeding, fired one last time. Blindly. The shot hit Vincent in the gut. The train slowed as it neared the final stop. Vincent sat down on one of the benches. Blood soaked through his gray suit. He looked out the window, eyes distant. You were right, he murmured. Max stood across from him, chest heaving, gun hanging at his side. Annie stayed behind Max, still breathing hard, staring at the dying man who'd nearly taken her life. Vincent leaned back, head against the glass. I do this every night, and nobody notices. He closed his eyes. And didn't open them again. The train rolled into the station and stopped. Max and Annie stepped off into the pale light of morning, side by side, silent. Above them, the city stirred. Sunlight touched the tops of buildings. The hum of life returned. And behind them, Vincent's body rode the train alone, vanishing into the tunnel. Unnoticed.